All right, so it's early-ish on a Saturday morning, and I have to go, well, I don't have to, but I've agreed to go take a look at a problem with somebody's Ethernet trying to find a lightning arrestor for their business. I don't know how much of that I might film, or maybe I'll be able, if I can get permission to, do something, maybe I will. But it gives me an excuse to take a road trip. And there's a couple things happening on this road trip. One, I get to spend, well, part of the time, because it's nearby where my sister lives, and home-cooked chili is never a bad thing. Stop by Wawa, got gas, we're all set. I get to see the pugs. I get to see the pugs. I get to see the pug. Yep, I got a new toy. Check it out. About that. Yeah, don't at me. We're going to talk. Okay, yes, I know there's going to be questions out there like, why did you buy the 8 gig model? Why did you test it on a mid-range system? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Where are you even doing this from? All those things. Or why did you choose there, or whatever the deal was. Okay, let's start with the simple basic things. I went to go take care of a different job. I helped do a little bit of that. I didn't go out to the site, but I was explained what was going on and what the situation was. So maybe in the coming weeks, we'll be able to go figure that out. It has to do with a lightning arrestor, some Ethernet, and some long runs, and we'll get to that. Why did I buy this card? I wanted to, well, first of all, I think this thing is a very, very poor deal at $300 or $330, and the retail price, even though the retail price is like $299, it'd been selling recently for $300 plus, $320, $330, and even on eBay now you can still trying to find them used. Some of the prices are still up there for this 9060 8 gig model. But when Amazon dropped the price down in the 260 range, then it became closer to, say, an RTX 3060, or maybe just a little bit more than a B570. So we're going to do a little bit deeper dive in some of these other cards later. But I wanted, when I had this chance, I was already going to be there. I already knew I had this mid-range system there with a 3700X and an RTX 3060. I figured what better way to go ahead and at least look at this in 1080p and take a stab at it that way and see what we're kind of looking at. Yes, I did have my reasons. No, I do not think this is a good buy at $300 plus bucks. But they always say that there's never a bad product, there's only a bad price for a product. And if we can get this down, you can get one of these cards in the 250 to 260 range, then it becomes a much, much better deal, a much better deal than it would be if it was over the MSRP and we're talking 320, 330, because you can still find them that price. You can still find them up there. The 16 gig you can find for closer to $400, but you can still find the 8 gig for over $300, even used on eBay. So when I saw this, I had the chance, and I thought, you know what? Now is the time to go ahead and try to test this. It's more in line with some of these other cards. Let's see what it looks like. And it wasn't all bad. Now, AMD, their recent, how do I best put this without sounding like a total critic on AMD part? Against AMD, I should say. This 9000 series is a really, really good series of card. Now, they have made some crucial, I would say crucial blunders. The pricing is one of them. Trying to copy the naming scheme is another one. Offering the 8 gig instead of just a 16 gig model might be another one. But in this case, we have something that did drop well below MSRP while the 16 gig was still up quite high. So gives us the opportunity to go ahead and look to see what kind of card this is and if it can handle some things. Now, I will tell you when I started doing these, and we'll go ahead and do some benchmarks and discover what it was like on a mid-range system. Keep in mind this is 8-core, 16-thread, and then we're comparing it to the RTX 3060, 2 generations older, yes. Still one of the most popular cards, and I believe right now the 4060 and the 3060 are the 2 most popular cards on Steam. So it is something that you would very, very typically find in a lot of systems, either a 6 or 8 thread, 6 or 8 core, and something like a 3060, you would probably find in a lot of systems out there. So that's why we chose to test it on this system first. That, and it's the one that was at my sister's house. I was going to be in the area this weekend. I had it delivered there, and so that was the most convenient place to test. Looking at these benchmarks, I was not impressed first thing out of the gate when I'm looking at Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The main reason, not because it doesn't perform a little bit better than the 3060 that has 12 gig, but because I couldn't quite figure out why it was maxing out around 150 frames per second. Medium, low, and high, or low, medium, high were all within a stone's throw of each other, but they kind of were that way for the 3060 as well. So I don't know. I'm thinking I want to think this is more of a limitation of the amount of memory I've got in that system. I only have 16 gig, and it's running at either 32 or 3600. I don't remember which. But that is more than likely having to do with the amount of memory I have in that system and not having anything to do with the card or the processor itself. I did not realize I only had 16 gig. I should have, because I'm sure I did that or mentioned that in the video, but I need to up that to 32 because now that I'm going to get more use out of the system, I probably need more memory. In any case, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, marginally better for the new card, but still only capped out around 150 frames per second or so. Borderlands 3 was a little bit different story. Now, when I first started looking at these numbers and putting the charts together, because I test these independent of filling out the charts, when I started looking at this, I thought, oh, 1080p high looks really, really good. We get down near 1080p low, and we can probably start to see where the CPU does have more of an effect because they're closer to even. Cyberpunk, very much the same way. We have a pretty big disparity on high. By the time you get to low, they're very, very close. I'm not going to say very close, but they're a lot closer than high was. So again, I think we're sort of getting in that area where we're maxing out a little bit of that CPU and maybe the memory. It wasn't obvious when I was looking at it in Afterburner. Didn't seem to be anything. It looked like it had more room to go. But in all three of these cases, it got to a point where it's like, okay, the diminishing returns. You're not going to get much higher of a frame rate for the effort, even though it should be easier to render. And these games, especially because they are a little bit older, having that 8 gig of memory as the limit for the 9060 wasn't any problem at all. And in fact, when I was running and have run my RTX 3060 Ti, which only has 8 gig of memory, I still haven't run into many problems using that card. But you know what? There's games out here that require more and more, and we'll just have to see how those end up working out. For our esports title, there is a fair amount of difference. It's noticeable. It was smoother when I was trying to play, but I wanted to think it just felt better. It felt smoother. When I ran the benchmarks, which you see here, there's probably a good gap of about 60 or 70 frames per second. When you're playing it, both of them felt great. Both of them really, really felt good. For some reason, it just seemed, I don't know if things looked maybe a little bit different, or maybe it was just in my head. I don't know. But the 9060 did seem to be a little bit better experience than the 3060. And that could be completely and totally in my head. I don't know. But once you're getting up to that high of a frame rate, 200 to 300 frames per second, it really shouldn't matter much. Now, it could also do I don't any number of things. I don't know. But it just seemed like it was a little bit better experience. Maybe it was just because I had a better game. I don't know, a couple of better matches when I was using the RX 9060 XT as opposed to the RTX 3060. It could be a number of things, but it was a little bit better when I finally did go ahead and put these in a chart and look at them. The 9060 did do a little bit better. And then by the time we get to some of these newer, more demanding games that require, say, some form of ray tracing or have some kind of frame gen built in, or make use of, say, FSR3 or DLSS3 or something, now we're starting to see just a little bit more of a difference, and the 9060 pull away. I did notice. First, we'll go ahead and do Black Myth Wukong. We'll show you the difference in that. It was very, very smooth. This looked beautiful when I was running it on the 9060. And it didn't seem like there was any kind of memory overrun. Now, when I was doing Monster Hunter Wilds, I'm not very good at playing this game, so I relied on the benchmark. It did look, and when I was looking at that or watching that, it did look like it was borrowing more memory from the system memory, which of course could also result, because it only had 16 gig of memory to pull from, could also result in just a little bit lower score than it should have. But we'll see how that works out when we do it on the 12700 with 32 gig of DDR5 memory. That's in an upcoming video. We'll go ahead and discover that and see. But we're also going to test that against a couple of other cards that do also have, one of them has the same amount of VRAM. The other one has just a little bit more. So we'll see those coming up. It handled them very well. I was very pleased. It looked very good. And you know what you're talking about there is playability. You want something that looks nice, it's playable. I ran all these on 1080p. I didn't try to do 1440, which we will do in the next video. And I obviously didn't try to run these in 4K. This was on a mid-type system where you're targeting, say, 1080p. I didn't see any need to try to target or to test 1440 yet, but we will in a little bit more in-depth video. Is this a good card? At the 260, I paid $269 plus tax. At that price range, it's almost a good card. I would say it's a good card. It's not a great card. If this card were $250, say more in the range of the Intel B580, what it's supposed to be, or what you can buy the 570 for, I think it's a great deal. If you can get it for around $250, I would think it's a decent deal. If you think about it, I only paid about $20 more. Is it worth fighting over? No. I saw the price drop and I thought, you know what, now is the time to go ahead and do it, because a $50 drop is a pretty decent sized drop. And I don't know when the rest of the models are going to drop or anything like that, but I do know that the prices are starting to come down on these. So I thought it was a really, really good time to go ahead and buy it and take a look at it. I'm not upset, and hopefully you guys aren't upset with me either, but that's the reason why I bought it, is because so you guys wouldn't have to. I mean, I'm the budget channel here, right? I'm one of several, and if you're looking at head-to-head with how this card does with previous generations in the 60 series or 600 series or whatever, there's plenty of videos out there that will give you an in-depth, including videos done by channels like Hardware Unboxed, an excellent video on the fact that one of the things that he actually found when he was testing was that this card does have a full by 16 lane. It takes advantage of all the PCIe lanes by 16 instead of by 8, which some of the other cards are limited to. So that might be why, even though this card only has 8 gig of VRAM, it may have more bandwidth to be able to borrow more system memory more easily, thus making it just a little bit better card. We do know it's less expensive than, say, the 5060 or the 4060. So maybe this does become a really, really good option, even though the criticism is that it has half the memory. I was not upset. I'm very well pleased with the purchase. It's a smaller form factor 2-fan card. It stayed very, very cool. There's no bling. It doesn't have any bells and whistles. It doesn't have any RGB. It doesn't have anything special about it. It's not the overclocked edition or anything. It's just your basic 2-fan, 8 gig, 9060 XT. And it did exactly what I expected it to do. It played games. It looked good. And it was surprising. Things like Black Myth Wukong, I was really, really surprised how good it looked. There was no artifacting. There was nothing. And when I did Monster Hunter Wilds, I did it without any kind of frame gen or anything like that. So I just the raw performance. We weren't trying to look at inventing frames that would stick in there for any kind of benchmark. And it looked really good. I think it was around 70 frames per second in that. So, overall, it came out really, really good. Now, like I said, I will go more in depth in this later. But for now, for what it is, what I bought it for, and how I plan on trying to use it, ended up being a really good card, a really good buy. I'm not going to say really good card. It ended up being a good card and a very good buy. And I think that we're probably going to see some of these lower end that nobody wants. Maybe you're going to see the 5060 8 gigs, or like this 9060 8 gig, or some of these that are less popular. I think we're going to start seeing some of those price drops, and they might be a really good buy when they get to that point. So yeah, I just want to take a look at that. That is all I have for this video. If you got anything out of the video, throw a like on it if you don't mind. If you're not already subscribed, please do. I'd certainly appreciate that. That would be wonderful. Don't forget to hit me up on the other socials. I got them down at the bottom of the screen there so you can take a look at them. But if you don't do any of that stuff, if you don't like or subscribe or hit me on the socials or anything like that, do me one favor. Let's just be good to each other. We're getting now toward the end of the year. It's going to be holiday season. There's going to be a lot of family activities and stuff like that. And maybe it's just a good time to just, a little bit extra kindness, smile, wave, say good morning, hold the door open, those types of things. I ask all the time, and I do get good feedback. You guys do tell me that a lot of times you guys tell me that that's a positive part of your day when you smile at somebody and they smile back. So I appreciate that, and thank you. It makes me feel better when you guys share that. If you have any thoughts about the 9060 XT, the 8 gig version, the 16 gig version, if I totally messed up and I screwed the pooch and you never would have done that, no matter if it was $210, leave me comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this is something you would consider buying one of these cards if the price was right. Or if you're looking at one of the other cards, maybe the NVIDIA cards, or even the Intel Arc cards, if it's something that you'd consider if the price was right. Yep. That is all I have for right now, like I said. So until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, and there's more of it, and there's, like I said, we're going to do a more in-depth video on this coming up. So until that time, that is all I have, and I'll see you later. What are you guys doing?